All right, Matt, remember that time that we went to a really cool house in the middle of Austin with some really cool people and then did a really cool podcast there while we were at it?
Yeah, what was that? God, it was a person's name. I feel like it was like Riesling,
Riesling? Yeah. Ringling.
Reisinger, Reisinger.
Reisinger.
That was
Yeah,
it.
that was it, right?
What was his
Reisinger
first name?
Build.
Matt.
Right.
Matt. Matt
Yeah.
was his name.
With
God,
the
I don't
Build
forget.
Show. Dude, we got somebody else from the Build Show network on here today, dude. I'm excited. You ready to jump into it?
Yep. Heck yeah, I am.
All right, everybody, guys, this is going to be a really fun episode here on the show because the last time that we did a show with somebody from the Build Show Network, we were in the Build Podcast Studio, and we're doing this on good old Riverside here today. But seriously, this is going to be a excellent show, Matt. Do you want to tell them a little bit about the guests we're going to have on here?
Yes, yes. My friend Eric Aune from a plumbing and heating guy from up in the Minnesota area, which
He's
is
a Minnesotan.
usually way different weather. We were talking about the weather a few minutes ago. Usually way different weather wise than what I'm dealing with down here, but right now it's pretty much the same.
Yep. I
But
love it.
as far as I'm concerned, pretty much an expert in plumbing and heating, mostly plumbing. I mean, I feel like I want to talk about that a little bit later, but I feel like a lot of people look at you and say, how is this supposed to be done? Or they look to you to tell them how it's supposed to be done. So yeah, I'm looking forward to getting your take on some stuff today, Eric.
All right, I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, and just so to kind of give your bona fides here a little bit to everybody listening, you are a master plumber. Honestly, there's nothing you're not doing right now. I mean, you've got a podcast, the Make Trades Great Again podcast. You built up the Mechanical Hub social media, almost 1 million followers on all platforms, and you're on the Build Show Network. So we're excited to get down and talk with you here today. Definitely, dude.
Yeah, thanks so much. Yeah, no, we do a lot of podcasting, a lot of videos, putting stuff out all the time. It's just kind of the way it is in 2025, right?
Oh, you have to, man. Absolutely. So
Oh,
no,
what are
that's
you gonna do?
now. How long have you been doing your all of your content lines, man?
I think I started on social media with my own plumbing, the Ani plumbing and heating business, probably 2009, 2008, somewhere around there. Back when you couldn't post videos on any kind of format because they just didn't support them, except for YouTube, of course, right?
Yeah, that was early YouTube days.
Well, and I actually totally missed the boat early on YouTube. I thought, oh no, I'm not going to be any good at that. And I wish I would have stuck with it, started
Same.
and stuck with it at the beginning. But yeah, we just put it out everywhere, and it's just a lot of fun.
That's fantastic, man. No, yeah, you guys do a great job with it. And so for all of y'all listening, go follow them at Mechanical Hub. Go follow the whole Mechanical Hub series there. Eric, you guys are doing great work. But I love that you guys are so engaging with the audience too. And for everybody that's been following Matt, that's been following the ride along, that's been following everything we've been putting out lately, we want to engage with you guys too. So before we jump into the main discussion, we do want to encourage you guys. First of all, go check out the show notes down below. You can sign up for the newsletter, which is going to be the easiest and best way to get every single new episode right in your inbox. We don't want to spam you up. We just drop you guys a quick email with the newest episode whenever it comes out. So the link's going to be down there for that. And you can actually, we got a website too. It's called Podpage, and you can go to podpage.com/the Ride Along Home Inspection Podcast, and you can leave us a voicemail there. So you don't got to call a number, you don't got to send an email. If you want to drop us a line, you guys are more than welcome to do that. But while you're at it, go follow at Mechanical Hub, go follow the Build Show Network, and because there's all kinds of just absolute gold for this industry and all related industries right there. So. But Eric, yeah, we want to talk all things plumbing with you today, man. Just because you've gotten to work with the Reisinger build,
Yeah.
you've been on deck there, and so we're excited to talk with you about everything from that to PEX plumbing because we've gotten comments before about we had one episode where an inspector was he's kind of from the old guard and he was pushing back a little bit on PEX plumbing, finding it to be a little bit troublesome. But we want to get your take because we had some hot takes in the comments on that episode. And
Yeah.
another thing, we ran into the water heater, the heat pump water heater at the Risinger build. We we honestly didn't even feature it just because we're like, I don't think we know enough about this thing to even talk about it. So we want to get your take on that too, man.
We're
What's the
certainly
new
Oh,
gaining
stuff?
popularity, and the PEX thing, man. I mean, like, I think to kind of like kick this thing off, like it's been compared to, and I'd really like to hear what you had to say about this too.
I
The
think
next polybutylene. Okay, so
don't I don't
like,
want to hear that. I don't want to hear that.
like, I mean, what are your thoughts there when people say something like that? What does that do? Does it make the hair on the back of your neck stand up? Do you agree with that? Do you not agree with it? What's going on
I I don't know that I don't know if you can agree with it. I think if you just look at it pragmatically and you look, we're not having failures with PEX like they had with polybutylene. We've obviously the industry, the manufacturing industry, learned a lot from that whole debacle, and it was terrible. It was terrible, terrible, terrible. But I wouldn't say PEX is the next polybutylene yet. Now, I want to say a couple things. Let's just qualify. So, everybody listening, I don't want you to be skeptical. Who's this guy? Is he like pushing PEX? Is he pushing copper? I install both all the time. I do a lot of hydronic heating systems. What that means, I do a lot of boiler systems. We heat houses, buildings all the time with hot water, and we cool them with chilled water. We do that with combinations of different piping systems. We do a ton of potable water, or for my Canadian friends, potable water,
there?
with both copper and PEX tubing. And let's face it, the nation right now, the entire North America, and pretty much every other country as well, is plumbing most systems, the majority, as in pretty much all of them, in PEX tubing. And the reason why is because we've got a huge labor shortage. And so if you can do jobs faster, you can get more jobs done, or you can keep up with the work you have and the demand. And also it's more profitable because you can install a lot more pipe in same amount of time versus, let's say, copper, right? So there you go. My background is I have for over 25 years installed both types of piping systems. I guess PEX kind of really didn't become popular until, let's say, like 2005, kind of
Yeah, it's roughly
beyond.
about
So
20 years ago.
yeah, so
Yeah.
about 20 years with that, right? But I've been a plumber since I started my apprenticeship in 1998. So there you go. It's a long time. I use both systems currently. Matt, you and I were talking the other day. You're like, well, what would you have in your house, or what if you built a
Yeah.
house tomorrow? What would you put in it? I'll be honest with you. The house that's 100 feet away from me, from my shop that I'm sitting in right now, it's got copper in it, and I built that house in 2002. But at the time, we were really in our market. What we saw a lot of was CPVC, not PEX, at that little snapshot in time. And I certainly wasn't going to go with that CPVC product. I have a bias against it. So I went with copper. Am I glad I did? Probably. I mean, we know that copper's going to last forever, right? So I don't know if it's the next polybutylene. That still remains to be seen. We don't have any like class action lawsuits over current products that at least in the
Right.
last decade. Are there problems with it? I think there's problems with different applications. And when I say applications, like, we know that there can be issues with PEX tubing, like in attic spaces, right? They get that super high temperature environment. We that can cause problems with all types of PEX, not just one in particular, any kind of it. So we maybe got to rethink how we're plumbing houses that don't have basements, right? Or unless you're going to
Pretty
go,
much everything I have.
yeah, or sub slab, right? You could go sub slab and be with PEX and be just fine here, and not in that 140-degree environment, things like that. The other thing too is we know that copper can handle those temperatures, but if you don't install copper, let's just face it and be true here. If you install copper wrong, you don't install it correctly, it can have failures too. So
Right. I mean, the problem is happening at the connections, right? I mean, that's what's happening, with PEX too, right? I mean, like, even with this heat driven problems, if that's, I'm not really seeing that here, believe it or not. I mean, at least not that I know of. But I mean, that's usually the problems happen at the connection points. Am I right about that?
I think connections, like some of the fitting systems for a little while years ago, where we had this problem with our brass that was being brought in and imported into the U.S. And they had a problem with what was called de-zincification. So the zinc inside of the brass is it's a what's the alloy, right? So it's multiple different types of metals blended together. It's copper, it's tin, antimony, and zinc, and there's a few different things that are in it, right? Well, the problem was water quality was pulling that zinc out, and the fittings were failing. Okay, that's a
Yeah.
problem. So
Yep.
that's a fitting problem. Then the joints and stuff. So like there's different types of PEX. There's PEX that you crimp, which probably most people are familiar with. There's PEX that you actually expand in diameter to
Yeah.
fit
I'm familiar with that.
over.
Yeah.
You fit over a fitting that's a little bit larger than the tubing itself, that kind of stuff. And so if you're not using the right tooling or you're not installing it in the right conditions, that can cause problems. Just like anything, just like if you don't ream the cut end of your copper, it causes
Right.
turbulence and it can actually wear a hole through the side of the pipe. So
That's kind of what I was getting at. Like, the problems are the connections. So if the connections are bad, like depending on how you install this stuff can be, a lot of the factors of whether or not they fail. And I mean, like in talking about that, like you do a lot of press fittings too, right? Like
yeah.
how do you feel about that stuff
Oh
as
man,
compared to,
this
I mean,
is a hit.
obviously
This is
ease
a
of
hit.
install, right?
This is a hill I will die on. I'll tell you what. I I'm very much I love the science behind everything that we do in the trades. I think if it's something I'm going to be involved in, I want to learn as much as I can about it. And so you learn about things like flow velocity and turbulence, and the proper prep and prepare and put together of any type of system is super important. You have to know what your system's going to be used for. But if we're just talking like residential plumbing, there's some very basics that anybody can follow, and I can teach you everything you need to know within a couple days of being on the job. And you can repeat those tasks over and over, and they don't take any real special tools. Now, pressing, some people don't like it because they look like early on, plumbers hated it. They're like, oh my gosh, anybody could do that. You could teach a monkey to pull a trigger. And I'm like, well, that is an accurate statement. I would imagine. I'm not into training monkeys, but I think you could teach a monkey how to pull a trigger on a power tool, and I wouldn't want them to do it. And here's why: because I, as a master plumber, licensed, and anybody that works under me and I've worked alongside, have to know exactly how to install that pipe exactly the right way. It has to be sized properly, supported properly. It has to be in like the right piping for what you're using it for, right? And I don't think monkeys are going to do that. So we got some qualifications in order to get to the point where we're pulling triggers. But the fact of the matter is, I can do it. I've been doing this a long time, and I'm not inhaling fumes. I'm not starting places on fire or nearly starting them on fire, because I've actually seen buildings burn down from plumbers' torches.
Wow.
And
man.
honestly, right here in Minnesota, it's happened in my career. I've seen it. But I mean, that's rare. That's rare. But you're not gonna burn a building down by pulling a trigger on a hydraulic tool, right? So like, I love press stuff because it's efficient, it's fast, it's clean. I'm not putting anybody's property at risk, and I'm cutting down on the wear and tear on my body. And by the way, it lasts forever. It lasts as long as we need it to last. I don't know how long we need copper piping systems to last. I'll be honest with you. I think that if they last 50 years, that's probably long enough. I need a job to, I need plumbers to replace, get paid to replace this stuff in the future. So that's like the big argument against it, if you kind of see where I'm going with that there. But I love pressing stuff. But back to the PEX real quick.
You're saying there's planned obsolescence in this industry?
I don't think 50 years is planned obsolescence. Let's be honest. Like, are you buying a car thinking it's going to last 50 years? You know what I mean?
There's Toyota guys do that, though.
Really not.
Yeah.
I am a
I'm gonna
Toyota
get
guy.
500,000 miles out of this thing.
I
No, you're not.
know. We are a Toyota family. Dang,
I love it, man.
I'm stepping on a lot of cracks here. The PEX thing. I hope I'm not dominating the conversation here, but the PEX thing. Well, I want to acknowledge a couple of things too, because there's a lot of people listening to this, and they might think of some scenarios they might have heard of, read about, seen on their own jobs where PEX was failing that wasn't at the joint. And there's a few manufacturers out there that are very upfront, and they say, look, we have some scenarios where our pipe might not be the best fit, and it tends to be like hot water with chlorination and like recirculation, like a lot of moving water. So like I know, for example, one of the major manufacturers had some failures on pipe, and it was pretty bad. It was bad for them. It was bad for the industry. And what it was like the recirculating line on the hot side of things with chlorinated water, because it was municipal, that kind of stuff. And it turned out their pipe was fine for like the first 5-6 years, and then like year 6-7, somewhere around there, they started having failures. Right? Not everything's perfect. I will say, like I have many times, you can have failures on every piping system, though.
Sure.
Like, honestly, if you're not applying it right, or you have to know going into it, like, look, this does that have a less of a lifespan expectancy because of how we're using it, that kind of thing.
So it all comes down kind of to most of the failures are going to be due to operator failure more than anything.
Installation is probably the first failure that we see. Installation error, like the installer error, and then application.
Sure.
Honestly, like just because it holds water and you can install it in a wall doesn't mean it's the right one. You know what I mean?
Right, right.
Just like I can install the wrong breaker in my panel and my everything's gonna work until it doesn't. You know what I
Right.
mean? So,
Right.
So I wonder then, does some of the pushback, and this isn't to be ageist in any way, but does some of the pushback kind of come from the old guard towards new materials in the same way that home inspectors, you still got a bunch of guys out here that run around with point and shoot cameras and iPads or notepads as opposed to, using an app, or they refuse to do video or things like that because, there's risk.
That has to play into it.
Yeah. Is that some of it, or?
I'd say absolutely. I'd also say just kind of on like, let's keep everything in perspective here. You do have some old timers, let's call them old timers, the older
We say it with all
generation.
respect. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. They had seen failures in systems, so maybe they're skeptical, right? So
Right.
like I'm working still around people that are in this trade. They're probably close to retirement age or retiring now, that worked through the whole polybutylene debacle in the 80s. Okay. Most of those guys and gals that were working at that time are at least at retirement age or close. But if they're skeptical of it, it's usually based off of personal experience. They've seen problems, or they have no experience with it. That's what I see. That's what I think I see most when I first started my social media stuff. So I was putting videos out there, pressing copper, putting in new technology, heat pump water heaters, and modulating condensing appliances like boilers and furnaces, stuff like, oh my gosh, that stuff is junk because the stuff we've had forever is so much better. It works. And while they're maybe not wrong, they're wrong about the junk part, but maybe they're not wrong about what they have been installing. It's fine. It's usually because they have no experience with something new, right? It's so easy to say, just to make assumptions and say, oh, that's junk if you've had no firsthand hands-on experience with something. That's my take. That's, I think, just society in general is kind of knee-jerk reaction.
No, I
I mean,
definitely.
I think that these guys, these older guys, probably just there's a little bit of polybutylene, like PTSD towards any type of poly pipe,
No
because that
doubt.
was a big deal,
Yeah, no, and I credit them. I acknowledge that. I do. I acknowledge that if you've had experience with something and you've seen it fail, and you can properly assess it and say, hey, we did everything right. We did it the way they said we were supposed to do it. If you
Yep.
did that and it failed, then I'll totally listen to you. If you've never touched it and you try to tell me I'm doing it wrong or that's junk, I'm probably not going to have a lot of respect for what you're saying until maybe we can have a conversation about it.
There's some pushback that comes on home inspectors just for that very thing. It's like, you just go around and look at houses. You've not installed a dadgum thing, so who are you to actually, criticize this or this, or,
I don't know. If I had a question on whether or not something was right or wrong, I got a couple of people in my phone, Matt being one, like I could make a phone call and get at least a second opinion.
Yeah.
I'm not a framing carpenter, like I don't do that. So if I'm going to do something and I think I'm doing it right, maybe I would consult a home inspector, because I think there's a lot more today that are better than they ever were. And they're so much more knowledgeable, and you guys are sharing so much knowledge with each other.
I think that has something to do with it. Yeah. I mean, I think, putting that out there, everyone has a chance to grow. Just like, meeting you and other people in the construction industry, like I get to learn from everyone on a daily basis. And I feel like, that's what, some of these inspectors are doing is learning from other inspectors that are putting stuff out there. So I think it's more tangible. When I started, this stuff just really wasn't available. You couldn't get the training. The videos that were out there were really terrible, and you got training in school, and the home inspection school, it was not very good. It was what it was. You get experience on the job, but now there's a whole lot of stuff out there. But I got a question for you, because we were talking about your house, and it's got copper in it, and we were talking about, like, if you were to get a new house, what would you do? And you were like, I'd probably do copper, but it's like, I mean, I also am going to do it myself. And so like, there's that. But I thought of another question in that realm.
Yeah.
If you were to buy a house that needed a repipe, what would you use? You use an older house, and that
like so everything's got a basement here in Minnesota,
let's say it's
right?
CPVC or galvanized or CPVC.
Oh my gosh. If it had if it had galvanized or CPVC, I don't care what would go in it as long as it wasn't, as long as that
But
stuff
what
was
would
coming
you
out.
choose?
I'll be honest, like I would have no hesitation putting PEX in if it meant that I had some, if I was like crawling around a crawl space and trying to, you know, snake pipes in tight areas and didn't have room to work, stuff like that. PEX is great. It's
Yeah, I
great
mean
for
for
that.
retrofit, yeah.
For
I mean, like I
retrofit,
don't
I
think.
think it would end up being a hybrid system. There's no doubt in my mind.
Okay.
If I built a new house or if I was repiping something and I was living there, I would probably choose copper, not because I think PEX is a lesser product, but because it's just material cost for me. I mean, I'm not paying myself to do the labor. Just as anybody I know that works in their own house is doing it, it's the last thing to get done, and nobody's paying them. So there's
For
no
sure.
motivation unless you don't have a hot shower or something like that, right? So like, I don't have hesitation using either one. Now in my house, I have copper. If I were to move in or build a new one, it probably would end up being a hybrid of sorts because there are some benefits to PEX over copper, and that would be like longer distances on smaller pipe. We can get away with better flow rates. We can use way less fittings with PEX. In fact, you can eliminate like some upwards of like 60+% of the fittings in the system just by going with PEX. And with the PEX systems that we're installing and have been for a while, if you're paying attention as a plumber or as a general contractor and you're looking at what's really out there in these catalogs from the manufacturers, if you go beyond just a very simple, oh, I recognize that as a T because it's, it's got 3 connections on it. It's so simple, There's some little tiny mini manifolds that allow like a whole bunch of connection points all at once, but they eliminate connections. They consolidate they eliminate fittings, they consolidate kind of this to small junctures and less cutting your pipe, less leak paths, things like that. So there can be huge advantages to a PEX system actually. And I think a hybrid is really the way to look at it. I think most home builders should really consider that. I think your plumbing in the mechanical space where your appliances are and stuff like that. I think we should be going away from PEX on those connection points where we're relying on pipe to be straight and rigid and braced nicely. So we're getting rid of vibrations and things like that, and go to copper and then switch over. And when you're in the trusses or you're in the ceiling joists or whatever it is, wherever you're working, I think then going to PEX is a great way, like a hybrid approach.
I love these little copper stub outs that I see like at toilets and stuff. Like nothing bothers me more than a piece of PEX just sticking out of the wall with a valve on it.
I think PEX sticking out of the wall is fine, but here's the deal. Go back to what I just said a second ago. If you know what's in the catalog and you know what's out there, do you know that they make these really awesome brass chrome sleeves that go over PEX? I've been using those things for years. My customers have no idea that there's PEX sticking out of the wall because I use the right kind of bracing that keeps my pipe straight.
Yeah.
You have the nice, but don't get me wrong. I get it. When people say, "Oh, that looks like crap" and stuff, yeah, usually because guys have stuff sticking out and it's all like wonky and gross.
They don't do it right.
I look at that and I'd be like, even if that was copper, I would say it looks like crap.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like you can do a poor job with good materials and you can do a great job with any materials. You know what I'm saying? Like you can do a good job.
Yeah.
I said there's nothing worse than a piece of PEX sticking out of the wall, but there is. My house has CPVC, unfortunately, right? I actually don't have any problem with it, but the one problem that I do have is that all my valves are push-pull, and
you have this A-core things?
It's stupid, man. Like, whose idea was this?
Anytime I see those, I remind my customers, like, hey, I offer this awesome removal and replacement service for those things because they're junk. They're garbage.
It's
and if
garbage.
If they're not failing, all we have to do is touch it and then it'll fail. It's one of those kinds of products. Like
2015 builder grade right there, right?
That's my house built. Terrible.
Brad, we were putting those things in because when I started out, I did new construction and every type of house from starter homes back when starter homes were fairly inexpensive.
Sure.
And, when you could build $150,000 house, you know what I mean? That's how old I am.
What are those? Yeah.
Yeah.
And
then all the way up to $1 million plus houses, right? We were installing those in like 99, 2000, 2001. And they're still like, hey, I'll acknowledge that they've lasted a long time.
Sure.
But they are garbage. They don't hold back water. You shut them off, remove a toilet. That thing's just dripping the whole time. You're like, I'm going to replace this thing. And I'm sorry, it's going to cost you a few $100. but you'll never have to worry about it again. You know what I mean? And you have a functional valve when I'm done, because those things are garbage.
Yeah, terrible.
Absolutely, man.
Very
Now,
bad.
I do want to talk to you about this. So we didn't really get to see the rough end for the Reisinger build because it
I
was.
did.
Oh, you did, okay, but it was when we filmed ours. The drywall was up, floors were
Yeah,
installed, everything.
Matt was
But
at the Build Show Live. They had it. I'm sorry to interrupt, but
No, I
they
wasn't
had.
yeah,
there
you're
for that.
good.
I was at Build Show Live, but I didn't go on the tour. I don't know what I
Oh,
was
I'm sorry.
off doing.
I interrupted for no reason. Sorry,
No,
Brad.
no, you're good. You're good. I ended up down there like last August or something, just hanging out with Mark, Willie, and Jake.
Cool.
Just
Very cool.
doing some filming and kind of checking it out. And it was like I think we did a blower door test on it, and like it was definitely in the rough phase, but yeah, wasn't quite even ready for the I think because they were putting insulation in before the build show, I think, right, to show off the different types of insulation or
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
And I didn't even have any of that in there when I went, but it was I did get to see it in the rough stage.
Right
And
on.
I'm sure that there's, I'm sure Matt's got some videos on the Build Show channel about it. But can you kind of tease it a little bit here on what went into that?
Yeah, it's surprising. A lot of people might not have, if you haven't seen the videos, and I did a couple plumbing and mechanical videos for Matt's series, because he takes off in the summertime for a nice long family vacation. They were shooting, they're like, we got to get these videos done because the walls were going to get covered and stuff like that. And so I was down there, and if you want to watch them, there's some videos with me in them. They're probably not as good as the ones with Matt, but we did cover plumbing and piping and different types of systems that are in there. And believe it or not, so they've got a Legend brand. Legend was a sponsor, so it's no problem. We can mention it's cool. Legend Piping, they're a importer up in Michigan, and they have a whole bunch of piping systems for potable and hydronic stuff like that. Fittings, they've got press fittings, they got everything. Anyway, Legend PEX was in there, and they used a push to connect type of fitting system. And it's interesting. It is. It seems as though most people would be like, whoa. And the reality is this: a lot of people don't like push to connect. If I say Shark Bite, that's a brand. That's not
Right, I was about
Legend's
to say
brand,
it.
right?
Right.
Yeah, it's like Kleenex at this point. Now, RWC, the company that owns Shark Bite name, doesn't like it when you say that. But you know what? That's the way they were the first, and they were the ones that perfect the fitting system in North America. So like that's what we're gonna call them, right?
Sawzalls are sawzalls, and
Yeah. But Milwaukee invented it, right? And that's their name, so yeah. I never call it a recip saw. Like, do you?
yeah, no,
And so anyway, I don't ask for Charmin, or whatever. You get the idea. But
Yeah,
so
you're
they
good,
use the
Brad.
push to connect fitting system. Plumbers are probably a little skeptical when they're installing it, but I talked to them, and so I know the plumbers a little bit that work for Matt's houses on the Reisinger properties, and I asked them straight up, I'm like, "What do you think?" Like, cameras are off. I'm just like, "Tell me what you think." And they're like, "At first, I didn't think it was like going to be great," and then they did the whole house, and they're like, I mean, it was pretty nice.
Clean, yeah.
You're just cutting PEX at that point and just pushing it together. They have this
It
system.
sounds awesome.
It was nice. The cool thing about those Legend fittings, I think they're called Clear Lock. I hope I'm getting that name right. For my friend Wade Tennant at Legend, if you're listening to this, sorry Wade if I got it wrong. I think it's called Clear Lock. And the point of it is this: they're made out of the same plastic that all PEX fittings are made out of, but they're transparent, so you could see where the end of the pipe was, and that you were fully inserted into the fitting. And a plumber would look at that and go, "Wow! Like I don't have to mark the tubing and measure it out and all that kind of stuff." And they were just like snapping it together, and they liked it. And they were honest with me. I think I know these guys enough. They were like, yeah, no, we were skeptical at first, but it's good stuff.
Now, what are some things that home inspectors really need to be looking out for with some of these new fittings and connections that are going in? I mean, because again, Breisinger loves to highlight some of the new, best, and most efficient materials and standards in the industry. So, from the inspector side of things, when we're looking at new plumbing and new plumbing materials, what are things that we need to be aware of?
I think it's important to just check out the website and the technical information from the manufacturer, right? So like if you see press fittings, you probably have seen them a million times now. on copper, and you go, okay, I mean, I don't really know much about that, but obviously you can learn pretty easily off of, let's say, the manufacturer like Viga or NIPCO. You can go to their website and find out how it's installed. Just, I think it would be good for home inspectors to just understand the process of installation, because if you understand how it's supposed to be done according to the book, you could look at the install and go, okay, I'm not sure that this guy's doing it right. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
and
Right.
ultimately when it comes down to like piping distribution systems for like potable water and stuff like that, I don't know. My inspectors here, my building inspectors, that if I'm working in a city that has like a trade specific, those inspectors are a little more thorough. They're looking at how I'm sizing my pipe. They're making sure that I've got everything. I don't, downsize too soon. Like I'm not taking fixtures out, too many fixtures off half inch, stuff like that. So they're looking at that a lot closer than, let's say, like my building inspectors that are looking at they're doing every inspection on the job, that kind of thing. They're less likely to be looking at that. But I think it's important. I think understanding, just like if you look at a bathroom group and you've got 3 fixtures or let's say you got 4 fixtures in a bathroom group, I can tell you right now, you shouldn't have feeding. That bathroom shouldn't be half inch. It's too small. It's supposed to be a minimum 3/4, right? So there's like the basics of like, I can have 3 fixtures on half inch, but as soon as I go to the 4th, I got to go to 3/4, that kind of stuff. And then ultimately, we kind of already talked about it. You guys aren't there watching them ream that copper or chamfer that, plastic PVC drainage fitting or something like that. But if you can look at the full system, understand what's going on, and you can see things that are pretty important, like supports, like PEX plumbing is supposed to be supported every 32 inches. How often do you see that? Like,
Right.
I mean,
Right.
I've had
Right.
inspectors literally be like, I think you're too wide on your supports. They look like 34, 36, like, okay, but he's wrong. He's not wrong. He's
Right.
looking at things that are important long term. Like if we're not doing even just the basics, because what is it they say about the code, right? It's the minimum standard,
Yeah.
so like, I think if you guys are looking at that and just going like, look, the pipe is supported properly. I can very clearly see how they did this venting. It's not, we're not trapping anything that might fill with water in the attic or something like that. And obviously you guys are looking at things like, does that freaking 3-inch line come from the bathroom group have slope on it? Like that's the
Yeah.
basics. Like I'm not
Yeah.
trying to tell you guys how to do it, but like that's pretty important.
Yeah.
But the fitting systems and like how it's going together, that's tough because you guys aren't there when it's being put together, right? You're there after
Yeah.
it's done.
I mean, it's a little bit outside of our scope, I think, for just about anybody anywhere in what we do in terms of general home inspection. But what you were talking about, especially whenever I'm doing like rough in type stuff, make sure it's properly supported, protected from nail damage and
Oh
stuff like
gosh,
that.
yeah, huge
What
protection. Yep.
let me ask you something. This is I hope this is entertaining. Um, what do you have any things like about inspectors that just like get on your nerves? Like what is it about inspectors that like really gets under your skin? Is there like one thing or maybe multiple things?
I've never no. Yeah. Okay. So
Yeah.
when I don't
Yes.
Yeah. He reversed that so fast.
no, it's not. It's not. It's not related to like critiquing my work. I'm I look at like I did a lot of new construction. I did new construction for a long time. I don't do it anymore. All right. So I might do a new home or something newish, like a addition or something like that. I might do that every couple of years. My work is being inspected. It's more like my heating systems, like I'm putting in a new boiler, I'm putting in a new furnace, something like that. That we pull permits, we get it inspected. But if I'm, you know, putting a new sink in and stuff, I'm not gonna lie, not always pulling permits for everything we do because some things we do don't need permits.
Yeah.
My biggest gripe, and I kind of have to stretch a little bit back to when I was doing new construction regularly, and it still happens today. But my biggest thing is like the inspection window thing. Like because in Minnesota, as a licensed trade, we have to be on site. So we have to be there for an inspection.
Okay.
And I gotta say that is one rule I don't think I'm willing to work towards changing. I just wish we could change the whole admin side on the inspection side of things. Like it feels like you stand around waiting a long time. I don't want windows. I want like a time. Like that's my
Yeah.
big thing. The other thing is, I'll be honest with you. I have had some of the longest conversations in my life on a job site with inspectors. Like they just want to talk. It's like maybe I'm just too nice or something, but like
You want to get to work.
I
Yeah.
want to like I gotta backfill this trench here. Like the concrete guys are probably my least favorite people on the job, and they're always at the plumber's heels. Like, when are you gonna be done? And they're filling in their trenches. Like, dude, I'm not even inspected yet. You know, like that kind of thing. I don't really have a lot to say. Honestly, I think time is wasted when we're standing around doing nothing. That's just kind of my personality.
Well, that sounds like building inspector type stuff. Like our stuff, or at least what I do, especially even when I do the rough end stuff, isn't really like that. And there's definitely nobody on site, or at least not usually. I mean, sometimes they are. They're just finishing stuff, trying to cram it in before I go see it. But I mean, like, it isn't that kind of deal where like I'm inspecting so you can move on. Like what I do, and I think what Brad does too is we're just working for the buyer. You know what I mean? So like the builder usually, not always, but usually depending on where they're at, has, you know, inspectors or people that come through and look at things at a certain time that can impede progress. Like for us, like I could go in there and I can tell you something's wrong, but that doesn't mean you got to stop. You can just keep going. But the buyer knows now that something's wrong. So they can either negotiate, hey, we got to stop. I'm not moving it forward anymore. Or, you know, they kind of discuss, you know, what happens from there.
Yeah.
If I'm doing if I'm doing a pre-drywall inspection and, you know, I'm checking out the plumbing that's there, I'm trying to stay as out of the way of the buildings as possible. You know,
Like
I'm
that
not trying to
said,
talk to
though,
the tradesman there.
like I get it. Like, and I'm like this too. I mean, I try to be respectful of people's time, but if like I have a moment to absorb some knowledge from somebody,
Yeah,
like
sure. Yeah.
I will do that. And so, you know, but I also try to be respectful of people's time. So I wonder if that's like what these guys are doing. Cause I mean, you know, they see somebody out there, they might have a bunch of questions.
You're using
I love
breast fittings.
Yeah.
Look, I love answering questions and having a conversation. That's different from now we're 25, 30 minutes in and we're talking about like how you're going on an RV trip. Like
no, forget
like
that.
I'm just looking like, if you have a question about what I did or a critique about it, or you could say, hey, I don't think that that's right. Could you show me how, like where in the code books to say you should do it that way? I love that. I love that question. I love to be asked by an inspector as a plumbing and HVAC contractor. Like I just said, like the best way I think it could be worded is, and look, this is my feelings, right? And like, this is how I feel about it. But like, if you could say to a tradesperson, like, hey, I'm not sure I understand why you did it that way. Could you show me? Like, I have the code book. Would you take a minute? Just like, could you show that? And that's an opportunity for you guys, for us to both learn together. Cause I make mistakes, but also it's a way different conversation then moving forward than, that's wrong. And if it's wrong, it's wrong. I need to be told that and I need to learn from that. But like, if you approach it that a different way, like, hey, you know, I don't see it like this a lot. Like, you're doing it differently. Is that right? Like, could you just show me that? And I wish inspectors would think about it that way. And some of them do, obviously. Some people are great with, you know, communication and stuff like that. But it's the job site oftentimes is filled with people, myself included. They're like very proud of what they did. And I just talked about it. We're in a hurry. We got we got things to do. And like the last thing you wanted to be told is you got to do something over. I don't know why it hurts so bad to hear that, but it really sucks.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That's supposed to be a half inch into the stud, and this is only 7/16.
Yeah, exactly. Like I want to be like, that is never going to matter in a million years. But like, but then it's so quick and different personalities don't mesh, but also there are some strong personalities in construction. We all know that. So like arguments can happen pretty quickly. And maybe you don't even intend for it to happen, or maybe you're just having a bad day, or maybe you misheard, or you thought what they were saying was something completely different. But the reality is I think communication can be a big thing. And I'm not saying inspectors have to treat me a certain way. I just wish that, like, if it comes up, I wish we could have more of a dialogue about it and be like, hey, would you mind showing me where that is, instead of saying that's not how I interpret it, because that sucks from the start.
Yeah combative instead of like a collaborative.
Yeah
Definitely.
And look, it's easy to talk about it on the podcast, and it's easy for me to say I would react differently if you said that. Like I hope I would
Sure.
you know.
No, I think it's a good place to talk about it just because it's like, I mean, honestly, how many podcast episodes do you have about on-site decorum, or anything
Yeah.
like that? But it's something, I mean, we're all working on the same property here and working around each other, and we're all highly specialized and very well trained and licensed in what we do. So there's a lot of respect to go around. It's just extend it and you receive it in my
Yeah.
mind.
Yeah.
That's good, man. So I do want to ask you quickly, if you could educate us. Let's use this educational term here. Let's take that tone. Could you educate us a little bit about the heat pump water heater
Oh
that is
yeah.
in the Reisinger build house? Tell us how. Like,
All
what is
right.
the science behind this guy?
Okay. So heat pumps are basically what they did is they said, you know what, you have a heat pump already in your house. It's called a refrigerator and freezer. And so they said we could heat water with that using that same kind of concept. Although with a refrigerator, if you think about it, what they're using the refrigeration process, they're using it to pull the heat out of what's inside the box. And instead, a water heater, just think of it as the opposite. We're trying to put heat into the box. So now we've got a tank full of water and we've wrapped it in a jacket of, usually it's this aluminum small diameter tubing. It's got refrigerant running through it because we put a compressor on top of this unit, on top of the tank of water. And we've run hot, superheated refrigerant through those lines and through conduction, because the tubing is wrapped in contact with that steel tank. Through conduction, it's just transferring the heat, because heat goes from hot to cold, through the side of that tank into the water. The water's colder than the refrigerant, it's going to heat up. So think of it the opposite way we do with our refrigerator and freezer. We're using the same technologies. Really, I mean, for purpose of this explanation, it's not any different. The cool thing about heat pump water heaters is they have a couple benefits, actually, depending on where you live and where you put them. And then depending on where you live, you could really benefit from the technology and like heat water for very, very using very minimal amount of energy, as opposed to other types of water heaters. So like if you live in the South and you could put your water heater outside your house, like say you live in Arizona or you live in Hawaii or Florida, there's all kinds of places in this country they do that. Can't do it here in Minnesota. We have everything inside, can't let it freeze, that kind of thing. Um, but if you live in an area where you can have your water heater outside, a heat pump's amazing, because now you could just use all that energy that's in the atmosphere, all that relative humidity that's holding tons of heat, and you can just absorb energy out of it and transfer it into the water. That's really cool. And then if you're, you know, as far as like the Risinger house goes, or the houses I install my, we have basements up here. We're installing our water heaters in basements like 9.9 times out of 10. These heat pumps then take a few different considerations. So like as soon as you put that thing inside, now you're expelling, because of how it operates, you're expelling a whole bunch of cooler air out into the room, into the space.
Like extra air conditioning.
It's like, yeah. So there's
right into the load, I guess.
it's kind of like a little bit of a benefit, right? So like you have this cooled air. It's very dry. It's, and it's being force fed out of the unit just through a fan into the room. And so there's a couple of things you have to know on just really about where these things can be installed. Otherwise, you're going to have problems. And if you, like, for instance, every manufacturer, based off of basically the size of a heat pump compressor, is about 500 watts. And you, through the refrigeration process and over a certain period of time, it requires a certain amount of air to pull energy out of before you just lose that energy, right? So you need like a specific or minimum volume of space. And that's like, all of them are like, hey, you need 750 cubic feet. And so we know a cubic is 3-dimensional. And you got to put it in a room that's 750 cubic feet or bigger. And if you don't, you have to duct air into that space so you can supply it with the energy, because you're using literally just the energy that's in the atmosphere, in the air around it, to transfer that heat into the water. So is that a lot or too much or not
No,
enough?
the
I think
science
it's
makes
good.
sense. I mean, I could kind of put two and two together. I'm like, all right, instead of an air to air heat exchanger, it's an air to water heat exchanger of some sort. It's just the where do you put the compressor? Where's the expansion coil? Like, how does that function in an enclosed space?
Yep.
Just all of that.
So it's all, so the maybe kind of the advantage about a heat pump water heater, in this case, like an all-in-one system, is that it's not a repairable type of, it's a has a expected life expectancy. I think they're saying that, based off of water, not taking into consideration like water quality, like these are 10 to 15-year-old or 15-year appliances. Water conditions can affect how long tanks last. Sure. Let me just put that out there. It doesn't matter if it's a heat pump or any other tank, but so it's all in one. So you don't have any refrigerant piping running to the outside. You're not having outdoor unit or anything like that in these typical units like you saw at the Risinger build. Sure. That was an LG model. I haven't installed that. I monkeyed around with that one. It's the first and only one I've ever seen from that brand. Sure. But yeah, they're basically the same as, like, if you think of like the air to air, right? So like you have to move air across that coil. All we're doing is we're taking that coil and we're making it bigger. We're making it the tubing inside that coil longer. We're just wrapping it around a steel tank filled with water. Sure. and then insulating the heck out of it, so that refrigerant that would be in that coil and the air running across it through the fins and everything like that, instead it's smack dab tight up against that tank, and just through conduction, like if you were to take and hold that cold glass in your hand, Matt, you feel that cool liquid inside there because your hand is hotter than the glass, right? So that's what's happening with the tank and the refrigerant, and that heat transfer is done right there instead of having airflow and fins and things like that.
That makes sense. Definitely makes sense. Now, before I ask the last question on there, since Matt held up his drink, a very quick drink of the day, Matt, what is it?
Yeah. Okay. Well, for me, I made a whiskey sour, what I call like a summer whiskey sour.
Summer whiskey sour.
Basically just lemon juice, a little simple syrup, little bitters, some, a couple ounces of some good bourbon, and I top it off with club soda. And so it's nice and bright.
And once we get off the show here, I'm going to toast Freedom in America with a rum old fashioned. I found a recipe for this guy.
Old fashioned.
You were telling me about that. That sounds good.
Yeah, you use it's coconut cartel rum. It's a Guatemalan blend. You use chocolate bitters, orange bitters, a little bit of simple syrup, but I think it'd be even better with like a brown sugar syrup. And
It really is.
Stir it up instead of shake it. Pour it over a big cube. I had it at a restaurant one time where they had a candied orange slice dipped in chocolate that they just topped that off with, and I was like, "This is dessert in a cup." Yeah. Man, it's good though. But I figured out how to make it. So, but yeah, of course, drink of the day sponsored by Inspection Fuel, September 8th through the 10th in New Orleans. Be there, be square. Links in the bio. But back to Eric, back to the water heater one more time. If you were a homeowner and you wanted to install something that was going to be the newest, most efficient thing out there, would you use something like a heat pump water heater, or is a tankless water heater still more efficient?
Well, I think we throw around the word, and I'm not calling you out, I'm not pointing at you, but I think we use the word. I think we use the word efficiency. I think we rely on that too much.
Okay.
All of these appliances are very efficient.
Sure.
Tank water heaters in general are less efficient than a tankless water heater. And the reason why is because we're storing this big volume of water that often requires maintenance to keep the temperature up. It needs a fire if it's gas, or it needs to energize elements or heat pumps or stuff like that. Even when you're not using water, because there's there's loss. It's just sitting there. If you have a tank of water that's 120 degrees and your room is 80 degrees, that tank is going to lose heat over time, right? And you're going to have to reheat it, even if you're at work or on vacation or whatever. Tankless, in that sense, then you could make the argument is more efficient, even if you're comparing it to a heat pump water heater. In this sense, is that most tankless are only heating when you run water out of a faucet. So like now we're not running in when it's sitting idle, when we're sleeping, when we're at work, when nobody's around, that kind of thing, because we're not maintaining a temperature, big volume storage. That said, I kind of like to put that out there. I think people use the word efficiency and as they're applying it wrong. This now tankless, like if you're looking at tank versus tankless, heat pump, anything like that, I think you just got to look at your load. Like, what do you really use for hot water? And that's not hard to figure out. It really isn't. It sounds foreign to most people, has just never thought about it. But if you look at how many people are in your house, we have some very good numbers that are averages. So we know that on the average, most people, family of 4, each person's going to use roughly 70 to 80 to 100 gallons of water. Depends on kind of your lifestyle per day. So if you take a 10-minute shower and you're running 2.5 gallons a minute, how many gallons of water is that?
Man, don't make me math right now.
Okay,
Yeah,
it's
come on,
25
Yeah,
gallons,
yeah.
but you take
20,
one
25.
shower a
You already
day.
know it.
Yeah, it's 25 gallons. But if you fill a bathtub to take a bath versus a shower, you're going to use more water than you did in the shower, right? So like you could just look at how you use your water, how many people are in your house. And there's some pretty good numbers, actually, I hate to say this, by the government that says like this is what you probably are going to consume in a day versus hot water. And so what do you want to use to make that hot water? Tankless water heaters are great because, like I said, you're not storing any water. They're endless. You can just leave the faucet run. They're not going to shut off. And that's awesome when you're talking like gas tankless. I love them. Heat pump water heaters, I think that they're fantastic. I fully understand and can apply them properly. And I think my customers are very pleased with them. But you have to know a couple things going into it. It takes infinitely longer to reheat that tank of water
Sure.
than it would if it were, let's say, even an atmospheric burning gas water heater.
Sure.
But if you size them properly and you store at the proper temperature, maybe you put a mixing valve in so that you temper that water down. Now you have even more water than you think you have because it's hotter than you need to have. And now everybody can get into that routine where you're showering in the morning. Maybe everybody showers in the morning. You've got a tank that's large enough for that. Then that has all day long to recoup and get back up to temperature. If you're going to have recirculation and you're going to have people home during the day and people up during the night and all these kinds of things, you need to look at really what's best. Probably not a system that's going to take hours to recoup and reheat like a heat pump. So maybe you look at that and go, hey, I work the night shift. My wife works during the day. We're opposite schedules and we got kids and we got all these, high demand at all day long, that kind of thing. We look at it and then go, tankless seems to be a good fit.
So application's key then. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's application and just understanding what you need because not every house is the same. I have customers that have, 6-8 people in them in their house. Sure. I have customers that have massive houses, 6 bathrooms, and there's like 2 people in them. You think they have the same water heater?
Right.
No.
Right.
Do they have same demand? No. But like if those 2 people moved out of that 6-bedroom house and 6-person family moved in it, they're going to use a lot more water than those 2 people did. See what I'm getting at? So it's all about application.
No,
we had an issue back in, because down here in Texas, we don't see much in the way of freezing temperatures, but every once in a while we do. And when it does get really bad, things fail, right? And so we had a ton of people move down here in the last several years, and so infrastructure wasn't really built for the amount of houses they were putting together, and we lost power during the winter because something failed because we had a real cold winter back in 2021. Something failed and a lot of people lost power for quite some time. It was wild because those of us with like gas tankless water or gas tank water heaters, we at least had hot water, but they're building so many houses around here with gas tankless water heaters. And like, that's great, but you got to have power for it. And so they didn't have it. So that I felt like that was a disadvantage, but that's like a disadvantage because of a natural kind of disaster,
Yeah, I mean, if you really want to plan for that, then just put a generator.
Get a generator. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, I don't think that I would plan around that. Like I don't think that would influence the selection of my appliances as much as it would be like, look, we're prone to losing power around here. And if we do, you need backup. I'm lucky. Like, look, we live in a pretty extreme climate here in Minnesota. It gets to be 40 below every once in a while. It's pretty cold. Yeah. But the reality is like we don't have a lot of power grid problems, and most of like in my area, sure, there's plenty of above ground power, but it's not like Texas where you guys are like all rock and blasting things and things like that, and other parts of the country where like they're not burying like power. I don't see any power lines around my house. You could drive for about 2 miles before you see the first one, right? So like,
Oh, I look outside my window in Florida. That's the only thing we do is above ground here.
yeah, because of so different conditions, right? And so because we don't have a lot of overhead power, and don't get me wrong, we have overhead power, but because it's less common, we have less issues with trees knocking it down, ice storms, or snow and wind and things like that. Because believe it or not, it can get cold enough and storms can happen that we can just actually break power lines and stuff. Like, thankfully, that's not a huge issue here.
Right.
I think the generator thing, we're looking at it at our house. They're just so expensive. It's like
Yeah.
I don't really need it, but the few times we lose power in a year, and it's
Right.
for very short periods of time, the few times makes me think every time it's like 40 below, like, oh crap, what if we lost power? You know what I
Yep.
mean?
I think I mean, I don't know how you feel about it, but I mean, like, honestly, a big portable generator is what I got. Cause I mean, they just want too much for these whole house generators. I don't even know how long I'm going to be at my house. I don't feel like it's my forever house. And yeah, that's great that like the second the power goes out, it just starts right up. I got to get mine out and plug it in the house, but it runs my whole house, man.
I know there are obvious I mean, there obviously are advantages to the, the the whole
Yeah.
house generator that you can
Right.
have installed, versus a portable. They are very expensive. I think it's peace of mind for people. Like,
Yeah.
if I do one, it'll be because I installed it myself. You know what I mean? And with my electrician buddy, I just needed to run my heating system, to be completely honest with you,
Yeah.
which would
I get it.
double up for cooling, and then like your refrigerator and a
Yeah,
few
the
lights.
refrigerators, and I mean, like here
Yeah.
it's more cooling because we're more prone to. We did lose power in the winter. We're more prone to lose power this time of year because of hurricanes.
Yeah, sure.
Yep. Same over here, man.
Yep.
Same over here. Dude, well, Eric, this has been awesome, man. Seriously, before we jump off, where can everybody follow you again? Just say one more time.
Yeah, it's at Mechanical Hub. Pretty much everywhere. Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, at Mechanical Hub.
Fantastic. And name of the podcast again?
It's Make Trades Great Again. It's not political, even though that's kind of why I named it that way, because people like, wait,
Yeah.
what? You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I if I could get 1 second on my podcast. So I have a
yeah.
co-host. His name is Andy Mickelson. He's, if you could say in your 40s, you got a best friend. He is my best friend. And known him a long time. He's a plumbing heating contractor in Missoula, Montana. I'm in Minneapolis, Minnesota area. And we both run businesses, and we both talk about how we do our jobs and kind of just how we started out, how we get through it, decisions we make. He's got employees, I don't. So like, it's a different conversation all the time. It's pretty cool. So if you want to just trade related, easy listening, we don't get too serious. It's called Make Trades Great Again. We got about 300 episodes. So if you want to start at the beginning,
Yeah, you got plenty of content. There's
you're
a
not
bank
gonna
there to
you're not
pay.
gonna run out.
You can binge it.
Hey, up in Minneapolis, have you worked with structure tech inspectors at all?
I follow Ruben and have like talked to him on the phone a few times. Like, that dude,
Great guy, man.
that guy, I think, now forgive me if I'm wrong or correct me, but I think that guy's like he's like legit really into his job and like very professional and
Yeah.
into education and just sharing information and stuff like that. At least that's what, from my perspective, that's what I see. And I've always just followed him on social media. I've referred people to him because I think he has a good reputation, and I think that their company does a good job. But it seems like he shares some wild stuff. Like the photos I see, I think, man, I'm embarrassed that that's in my state.
He's one of the good guys in this industry for sure, and knows his stuff, man.
Yeah.
Great team of inspectors for sure. They've got an awesome podcast too, Structure Talk. He and Tessa Murray, who's a building science expert up there. Actually, she moved down to Tampa. She's just up north of me now. But anyway, yeah, good people up by you, man. So
Eric, I feel like I want to mention this because I want other people to hear it. You like I say, I consider you an expert in the industry. You put out a lot of
Thanks.
material on plumbing, on HVAC, stuff like this, but also like, there's a lot of eyes on you and being in the social media world, and you've got a large audience. But one thing that I noticed about you early on and that I kind of admired was that you're not really afraid to just say whatever you want. And maybe some people wouldn't like it. Maybe they would, but you put things out there, not necessarily business related, like maybe personal or maybe just stuff that you think is funny. All you do that. And I talked to you about it one time a while back, and you said something to me that really resonated.
Oh
And
boy.
you just, no. I think it's great. You just said, that you just try not to take all of that too seriously, and that you're constantly reminding yourself that social media is really a place for it to be entertained. And that really resonated with me. And I've kind of lived it. That's why the reason why I want to mention it on this podcast, because I just want other people to hear it. I mean, I think we all need that reminder every now and again that isn't actually real life. I mean, look, we're doing real life things. Like we're telling you about our jobs and things. We're doing that, but that is not real life. What's happening there isn't real.
I think, yeah. Thanks for saying that. I appreciate that, and it's amazing you even remember we had that conversation. Thank you for listening. I mean it when I say, like, you can't be too serious. Here's the deal. Look, I share information all the time, and I do it because I truly want to. And if it was such a burden and a job, and it was just like a chore, and I just had to do it, I'm not going to be interested in it. You're going to know right away. And it's just not as fun. Like, do you want to go home every day and be like, man, my job sucked today? Like,
no,
my job sucked. And I just love how bad it sucks. Like, no, just kind of try to keep it light a little bit, because the job always gets done. We're going to share information tomorrow. I'm going to make another video. Like, this isn't this one video that didn't do good, or somebody had a bad comment on it, I didn't like it. Like, I'm not going to let that bother me. I'm going to forget about it tomorrow when I post the next video, that kind of thing. Like, it's not that important. And you can, what's the whole, like, you attract a lot more, what is it? Honey. I don't know what the saying is, whatever.
Like more bees with honeys in it. I don't know.
But you know what I mean? Like, I think people are like automatically attracted to other people that are just like a little more upbeat, a little more real. Like, you can say things how they are. You don't have to insult people. You can just say it the way it is. Or if you have an opinion about it, share your opinion. Like, that's okay. Don't be so worried about it. That's my take. Sorry.
That's the best Midwest nice note that we could possibly end on. I love it.
I love it, man.
That's perfect. All right. Well, seriously, Eric, thanks so much for being on the show, man. This has been great. We got to do it again sometime soon. And thank you guys, everybody, for listening and watching. Be sure to share this. Be sure to subscribe to the show. Follow the newsletter and sign up for Inspection Fuel, of course. And we'll see you right here next time, better than ever, right on
The Ride Along.
You got it.